Sorry.
Let's go kayaking, let's climb all the hills, let's cycle around. And this time I was just like, I just need to stay in this chair and read all the Jasper Fforde books.
That sounds wonderful.
Would recommend more Jasper Fforde books. They are not as weird as 50 Shades. Shades of Grey even. Like, much, much less weird. And have some fantastic puns. The Big Over Easy and the Fourth Bear are great.
I'm going to find out where our storyteller has gone. Whoa.
I did miss you, Katie, but it was fun pretending to be you. Hi, Andy. Your hair's fading in a way that gives you really nice highlights.
Oh, thank you. Also a prime way to see the highlights when I was distracted by Seagull claiming ownership over the lamppost.
Can you do that again? Like, the line of your jaw is just stunning.
Okay, T.
I'm pretty sure seagulls have ownership of lampposts and also the generally of the city and the world because they're big, scary birds.
Oh yeah, probably. There's a whole flock of them next to the bins because they haven't been picked up in a while because there are those orange fence things that are totally movable, but why would they? Because the pavement's getting fixed. But yeah, seagulls picked up a trash bag and is just strewn across the pavement. And this morning at 6 something when I left the house, it was like 10 of them next to my door.
Thanks, seagulls.
I learned today that in some parts of Australia, and this might be wrong, apparently ibises are like the equivalent of seagulls. Is this true? Does anybody know if it's true?
No idea. Sorry.
Ibises. They're
Can you
waiting.
imagine like lots and lots of ibises hopping around a city?
That would be wild.
I know, right?
Ibises are wading birds. That's
Aren't
really
they
weird.
huge?
Yeah,
They're
ibises are
smaller
really
versions of them. I should just look it up instead of like
Hi,
spreading
Liseñas.
rumors.
Hi.
Just like spreading rumors.
I think bird rumors should always be spread.
Yeah.
I like to spread lies about animals.
Rory, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
So stylish.
The Anglo-Saxon breakdown. I don't know. Trying to hard pivot here. So, hello everyone. We are recording. Right?
Oh yeah, Rory, you're co-host now.
You're so good. Okay.
Co-host, you can do what you want.
All
Does
right.
this mean we need to do something weird with the view?
I'll spotlight Rory.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, friends. Thank you for joining me on this intense nerd shit. Okay. Are we sitting comfortably? Okay. Then let's begin. I just want to help set the tone a little bit because like I say, I love Beowulf and all the different translations of it. And I just want to read like the first little passage in the original Anglo-Saxon, and then the Seamus Heaney translation, which is very like mythic and, you know, like high fantasy vibes. And then we'll move on to Maria Devana Headley's latest translation, which fucking rules. Okay. Wait. We gardina in geardag. 14 thrin gefron. Ho ethlingas elin fremedon. So, the spear Danes in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them, had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. Oh, tell me we still know how to speak of kings. In the old days, everyone knew what men were: brave, bold, glory-bound. Only stories now, but I'll sound the Speardane's song, hoarded for hungry times. Their first father was a foundling, Shield Sheafy. He spent his youth fists up, browbeating every barstool brother, bonfiring his enemies. That man began in the waves, a baby in a basket, but he bootstrapped his way into a kingdom, trading loneliness for luxury. Whether they thought kneeling necessary or no, everyone from head to tail of the whale road bent down. There's a king. There's his crown. That was a good king. Later, God sent Shield a son, a wolf cub, further proof of manhood. Being God, he knew how the Speardanes had suffered, the misery they'd mangled through, leaderless, long years of loss. So the Life Lord, that almighty big boss, birthed them an earth shaker. Beow's name kissed legions of lips by the time he was half grown, but his own father was still breathing. We all know a boy can't daddy until his daddy's dead. A smart son gives gift to his father's friends in peacetime. When war woos him, as war will, he'll need those troops to follow the leader.
There's that one, and whatever suits.
Privilege is the way men prime power the world over. Shield was iron until the end. When he died, his warriors executed his final orders. They swaddled their king of rings and did just as the Dane had demanded, back when mind and meter could merge in his mouth. They bore him to the harbor and into the bosom of a ship, that father they'd followed, that man they'd adored. She was anchored and eager to embark, an ice maiden built to bear the weight of a prince. They laid him by the mast, packed tight in his treasure trove, bright swords, war weeds, his lap holding a hoard of flood tides, each fair coin placed by a loyal man. He who pays the piper calls the tune. His shrouds shone, ringed in runes, sun-stitched. I have never heard of any ship so heavy, nor corpse so rich. Shield came into the world unfavored. His men weighted him as well as the strangers had, who'd once walked him to the waves' weft. Even ghosts must be fitted to fight. The warband flew a golden flag over their main man. The salt sea saluted him, so too the storms, and Shield's soldiers got drunk instead of crying. They mourned the way men do. No man knows, not me, not you, who hauled Shield's hoard to shore, but the poor are plentiful, and someone got lucky. Finally, Beowulf rolled into righteous rule, daddying for decades after his daddy died. At last, though, it was his turn for erasure. His son, the Halfdaner, ran roughshod, smothering his father's story with his own. He rose in the realm and became a famous warlord, fighting ferociously dawn to dusk, fathering his own horde of four. Heirs marching into the world in this order: Helga, Hrothgar, Helga, and I heard he handclasped his daughter, her name's a blur, Tuonela. Tender she rendered that battle Swede happy in fucking, where before he'd only been happy in fighting. War was the wife Hrothgar wed first. Battles won, treasures taken. Admirers and kin heard of his fight fortune and flanked him in force. Strong boys grow into stronger men, and when Hrothgar had an army, his hopes turned to a hall to home them, a house to espouse his faithful. More than just a mead hall, a world's wonder, 8th of 7. When it was done, he swore he'd load lighten, unhand everything he'd won, worn and owned, pass to his posse all God's gifts, save lives and land. He'd keep the kingdom, of course. And he gave far-reaching orders: carpets, carpentry, walls and gables, tables for seating a clan, rare gifts plated like rare meat. all for his men. So it rose, a great hall, greater than any other. Hrothgar filled it, blood brother by blood brother, and named it Heorot. His words were heard and heralded, and yes, bro, the man was more than just talk. He gave good gifts. His war-wedded wore king's rings and drank their leaders' mead. Nightly he fated his fight family with fortunes. The hall loomed, golden towers antler-tipped. It was asking for burning, but that hadn't happened yet. You know how it is. Every castle wants invading, and every family has enemies born within it. Old grudges recrudesce. Speaking of grudges, out there in the dark, one waited. He listened, holding himself hard to home, but he'd been lonely too long, brotherless, sludge-stranded. Now he heard and endured the din of drinkers. Their poetry poisoned his peace. Every night turmoil, raucous laughter from Heorot, howling of harps, squawking of squabs, men recounting the history of men like them. The Almighty made earth for us, they sang, sun and moon for our delight, fens full of creatures for our feasting, meres to quench our thirst. Heorot's hall dwellers caroused by candlelight, stumbling to sleep with the sunrise, replete, lambs bleating comfort, ease pleased, until the night wakefulness moved their watcher to wrath. Grendel was the name of this woe walker, unlucky, fucked by fate. He'd been living rough for years, ruling the wild, the mere, the fen, and the fastness, his kingdom. His creation was cursed under the line of Cain, the kin killer. The Lord long ago had taken Abel's side, though none of that was Grendel's doing. He'd descended from bloodstains. From Cain had come a cruel kind, seen by some as shadow-stalked, monsters, elves, giants who'd ground against God, and for that been banished. Under a new moon, Grendel set out to see what horde haunted this hall. He found the Ringdanes drunk, doused-downed, making beds of benches. They were mead-medicated, untroubled by pain, their sleep untainted by sorrow. Grendel hurt, and so he hunted. This stranger taught the Danes about time. He struck, seized 30 dreaming men, and hied himself home, bludgeoning his burden as he bounded, for the Danes had slept sweetly in a world that had woken him, benefited from bounty even as they'd broken him. When golden teeth tasted the sky, Grendel's silent kill was seen. His kills grim crimson spilt on banquet boards. The warhorde wailed at the spoiling of their sleep. At the depths they dived in darkness while their enemy ate. A mournful morning. Their leader sat at his plate, old overnight, impotent to this ingress. The band tracked the invader, but not to his lair. They had prayers to call out and pains to bear. Grendel did not stay himself from slaughter. The next night, a second slaying, and then another. His rope played out and rotted through, a cursed course plotted without mercy, and course after course cold in his keep. Bro, it was easy after that to count the weepers, men fleeing to cotes beneath the king's wings. You'd have been a fool to miss the malice of the hell dweller, now all-dwelling. Those who lived left, or locked themselves in ladies' lodgings far from full lights, and those who stayed, slain. For 12 snow seasons, Grendel reigned over evening. Hrothgar suffered, Heorot buffeted, no hero to hold it. Every outsider talked shit, telling of legends and losses. And Hrothgar's hall became a morgue, dark marks on floorboards. No songs, no scopes, no searing meat, no blazing fire. and Grendel, incomplete, raided relentlessly. Dude, this was what they call a blood feud, a war that tore a hole through the hearts and veins. Grendel was broken and would not brook peace, desist in dealing deaths or die himself. He had no use for stealth. He came near nightly and never negotiated. The old counselors knew better than to expect a settlement in silver from him. Ringless, Grendel's fingers, kingless his country. Be it wizened vizier or beardless boy, he hunted them across foggy moors, an owl mist diving for mice, grist grinding their tails in his teeth. A Hellion's home is anywhere good men fear to tread. Who knows the dread this marauder mapped? Grendel, enemy to everyone, waged his war without an army, lonesome as he lapped the luxurious lengths of Heorot. He howl-haunted the hall at night, the gold gifters throwing shade at him, his soul burning with dark flame. He couldn't touch the treasure, or tame his yearning, for he'd been spurned by God. Times were hard for the Prince of the Shieldings too, heart shattered, battered spirit spent. Men came to advise, bringing pithy plots and plans to arrest Hrothgar's awful guest. They bent themselves to idols and offered up their own spells that a soul slayer might suddenly show up and save them. That was their nature, these heathens, hoping at the wrong heavens, remembering hell, but nothing else. They knew no true Lord, no God, no Master. I'm just going to editorialize for a minute here. What I love about this book, this text, is that every so often the monk transcribing it remembers that the abbot is going to see this and has to justify why he's been spending his time working on it. So every so often he'll just go, yes, Beowulf was probably the sort of person Jesus would like. Anyway, dragons. We now return to the text. They too were cursed, yet thought themselves clear. Bro, let me say how fucked they were. In times of worst woe, throwing themselves on luck rather than faith. Firewalkers swearing their feet uncharred while smoke stepping. Why not face the boss and at death seek salves, not scars? So it went for years, the Hell Raider harrowing the half-Danese sun, who sat in silence brooding over unhatched hopes, while in the dark his people shuddered, salt-scourged by weeping, by nights spent waking instead of sleeping. News went global. In Geatland, Hielak's right-hand man heard about Grendel. Bro, here was a warrior like no other. Massive, mighty, born of noble blood. He called for a ship to be readied for his band and boasted he'd try his teeth on this tale, sail in as a savior over the Swan Road, seek that king, and lend a hand as defender. His elders understood his quest, and though he was dear to them, they knew better than to spear him with speeches. They augured the omens and ushered him onwards. He found 14 fists for hire, the boldest men of the gates, and enlisted them as fighters. He, as their captain, went aboard to pilot the vessel with sea skill through keen currents and mean depths. Soon it was time to depart. The boat's belly was wet, and beneath the landlocks these warriors met, cheering, bringing battle gear into her bosom. As sand split and surf sang, they pushed off and sent themselves to sea, made men. The wind sent them surging. With a foam-feathered throat, their bird flew free, sailing with certainty over salt waters. On the second day, she sought ashore, and the men saw cliffs, crags uplifting from the ocean, the end of the voyage. Overboard the Geats leapt, shifting from sailors to soldiers the moment their souls touched solid earth. Their weapons rattled as they moored the boat, their mail unveiled in sunlight. They thanked God for easy passage and sweet seas. Far above them, the Shielding's watchman waited, It was his duty to keep these cliffs unclimbed. When his gaze hit gleam, swords and shields glittering across the gangplank, passing without permission, Hrothgar's men set out for the sand on horseback, straight spear in hand, to stand formally and question them. How dare you come to Denmark costumed for war, chainmail and swords? There is a dress code. You're denied. I am the Danes' doorman. This is my lord's door. Who are you that you dare steer your ship for our shore? I'm the watcher of these waters, have been for years, and it's my duty to scan the sea for shield-bearing dangers to Danes. I've never seen any force come so confidently over swells, certain and welcome, no welcome won. Did you send word? No. Were you invited? No. You're not on the guest list. And also, who's the giant? What weapons does he hold? Oh, hell no. He is no small-time horse soldier, but noble. Look at his armor. I'm done here. Spies, state your secrets or be denounced. Who are you? What's your business? Where do you come from? I'll ask one more time. You're not coming past this cliff. Answer now or bounce. You men, who? Where? Why? Their leader unlocked his word hoard. He was the senior soldier, so he spat certainty. We are Geats, born and bred, bound to Hirlak. My father was Echdel. No doubt you've heard of him. He was famous. He lived through winters that would have pressed the life from a lesser, and though he's long since left us, everyone the world over knows my daddy's name. We come in peace, looking for your lord and Landshield, the son of the Halfdanning. Kindly give us directions, and we'll get gone. We're here to offer ourselves up to the Danes' lord, and our plans are open, no secrets from you. Is it true that something savage walks at night? We've heard the stories that misery stalks and rages here, that good men are endangered here by a stranger in this country. We come to counsel your king on how to cleave this reaver and court calm. If there's respite to be had, I'm the lad to bring it. Otherwise, Hrothgar will be grieving and desperate as long as his hall hangs. I see it here at the horizon. The watchman was unmoved, his authority innate. He sat tall on horseback. I know the difference between words and deeds, as anyone with half a brain does. Thus far, I'll endorse your scheme. You seem a troop true to my lord. The rest is in the proving. Come then, bring your battle gear. I'll lead you to my leader, and I'll send my guards to circle your new tarred ship on the sandbar until it's time for her to rise ring proud over this rolling road and be boarded again by whichever of you, if any, survive the sword storm you've brought. Off they went, agreed, leaving their own mount, that wide wave rover, hitched to rope at anchor. Boars bristled from their cheek shields, gold forced into fierce forms by fire. The watchman led them towards their war. 15 men heeded him and marched with speed until the timbered hall was before them, shimmering, golden, the structure best known under the sun and stars to every citizen of Earth. This was a place real men could be rebirthed, and their guide pointed the path to it, then turned pale, saying, I've been away from my sea view too long. May the Father leave you living. For me, I return to my ocean post to scan the shore for other enemies. The road was stone cobbled and kept them coming correct, a straight line of marchers, war garb gleaming, chains linked by hardened hands, their armor ringing loud as any hall bell. By the time they arrived in Herod, dressed for demons, they were sagging, sea-stung. They stacked shields, wood-withered, against the walls, then sat down on benches, their metal making music. Their spears, they stood like sleeping soldiers, tall but tilting, grey ash, a death grove. Each maker of armor-din was twin to his weapon. A man of Hrothgar's company admired them, inquired, What kingdom sent you here, boys? Your crests and shields, your gilt helmets and grey-clothed chests, your sharpened spears. I'm Hrothgar's herald and officer, and in all my years I've never seen such an impressive assembly of outlanders. You've too much style to be exiles, so I expect you must be heroes. Sent to Hrothgar. The man, we know him, his name means nerve. The leader of the Gates, hardcore in his helmet, spoke their mission succinctly. We're Hirlak's reserve, trained and ready. Beowulf's my name. If the Halfdan's son, your leader and lord, will allow me to come to him, I'll explain my errand in a few words. Wulfgar, a Wendel warrior, renowned and warranted for wisdom and for the tempered edge of his nature, replied, I'll ferry your request to our king and ring giver, lord of the Shieldings, and see what, if anything, he offers in response. I'll return with his answer as quickly as he gives it me. He went with haste to Hrothgar's throne. The old man was grey, huddled in pain with his retainers. Bold Wulfgar stood submissive at his shoulder. He knew the score. He whispered the matter to the Lord. Geatlanders have come ashore, sea-sullied from their long sail. Their captain and compeller is called Beowulf, and he petitions for words with you. Hrothgar, most generous, don't deny them. They're well-dressed, thus well-born and thus worthy. And the man who led them here, he looks so right. His chest broad in girth, his armor blazing, bright, blatantly of noble birth. Hrothgar, the Shielding's helm, lifted his head. Beowulf? I knew him when he was a boy, and I knew his daddy too, Ecgtheow, with whom Hrethel the Geat bedded his daughter down. Their son and heir is here to bring health to me. A crew of mine once crossed to Geatland with gifts from me to his father. They brought back a cargo of stories. Ecgtheow's boy, they said, had a hand grip as strong as that of 30 men. As for his band of Geats, well, hurry, let them in. Holy, how good is God? A hero's been sent here by heaven to defend the Danes from Grendel. At least that's what I hope he's come to do. If he relieves the pressure on our paradise, I'll pay him in gold. Go back before he comes to his senses and runs. Bid him appear before his father's friend. He's more than welcome here in Denmark. Wulfgar returned to the gates, stood at the door and said, My king, the East Danes' leader in arms, tells me he knows your father, and that you seafarers are welcomed into Herod. He hails you as he would homecoming soldiers. Go, dressed in your war gear, your helms, your masks, and present yourself to Hrothgar. No shields necessary, nor spears, boys. Leave your slaughter slingers here. Beowulf arose, and around him rose his armored army, though some stayed to guard the war horde by request. They hastened behind their leader through Herod's radiance. Their battle-bringer stood before the fire, glowing, and considered his words. His chainmail, the myth-protecting work of a smith, links netted to one another for war glory. His helmet made him look harder, so he spoke from beneath it. My respects, Sir Hrothgar. I'm a kinsman of Hirlak, and over the years, no boasts, I've been known for my promise and prowess. I heard tell of Grendel from sailors. Seriously, the whole world knows the stories, swapped and sworn, of Herod Hall's early curfew, how every night you surrender to silence when the sun sprints out of heaven, leaving the celestial dome dark. Every elder knew I was the man for you, and blessed my quest, King Hrothgar, because where I'm from, I'm the strongest, the boldest, the bravest, and the best. Yes, I mean, I may have bathed in the blood of beasts, netted 5 foul ogres at once, smashed my way into a troll den and come out swinging, gone skinny dipping in a sleeping sea and made sashimi of some sea monsters. Anyone who fucks with the Geats, bro, they have to fuck with me. They're asking for it, and I deal them death. Now, I want to test my mettle on Grendel. Best him. A match from man into meat. Just us two, hand to hand. Sweet. Let me ask one thing, though. King of the Bright Danes, friend of men, dire defender against the dark, he who knows what it means to fight. Trust me on this, don't refuse my humble request. We came a long way, me and my men, to conquer your curse and cleanse Harold. This task should be ours, and ours alone, as discussed. I'm told your pest mocks metal. In that case, I'll make my man Heelak proud. His fame fiercer, your boy, Chaboy, will enshroud his blade and fight with fingers and nails. No sword, no shield, no safety net, nothing but my grip, a hand clasped battle to the death. When we see who wins, we'll know who's got God's favor. If it's Grendel, I'll be a mere chapter in his gory story. He'll feast on Geds, ripping my men limb from limb, and I won't be there to protect them. I'll be dead too, cheekbones chewed and face forgotten, my body dragged to his lair, where he'll fare alone on my severed head, make a banquet of my flesh, he and I alone again, naturally. No, don't cry for this broken boy, don't lay out what's left of me. If warfare revokes my pass to Earth's kingdom, just send this mail shirt made by Wayland, willed to me by my grandfather Ethel, to Heelak. Horrors happen, I'm grown, I know it. Bro, fate can fuck you up. I love that line so much. Hrothgar, the Shielding's own skull protector, had some things to say. Beowulf, I count you a favored fight friend now. Your father, I knew him from a feud, which he began by killing Heathelaf. That too, hand to hand. And Heathelaf was a wolfling, so that shit couldn't stand. Your father's country wouldn't keep him. They threw him out, and he set sail overseas to me. I was a young king of the Danes then, hauling up a hoard of treasure. That ladder's rungs burnt beneath me. My brother Hrothgar had died, and he was the firstborn, the better. I was the lesser brother, but it didn't matter. I fixed your father's feud with fistfuls of old gold, my treasure shipped to stop his country's wound. Edgethar owed me allegiance ever after. Oh, it hurts my head that the world knows of my grief, of Herod's heartbreaker. Is there laughter in far-off places at me and my men? I'm humiliated. My whole force has been bent to Grendel's greed, and I'm short of saviors, bleeding the brave, feeding them to fate. God giving ground, not to heroes, but to this 12-winter shit season. And yet, over and over, when golden mead was pouring, warriors swore their safety was nothing compared to Harold's. They'd sleep with swords, with certainty, but when the sun rose, slaughter. Benches bloody, no sign of those brave soldiers. The floor a pool where once it was a playground for poets. It's all written in red. No, before you dine, Beowulf, your predecessors are deceased. But sit down, my new old friend. Boy, enjoy the feast. Take your place in the tale of my heroes and their hopes. A banquet bench was brought, an empty one, so every Geds could sit beside his brothers, and there they dined in splendor. At their shoulders stood a server, and he held a jeweled ewer filled with mead, sweet for singing and for feasting. A scop sang too, a shop sang too, his voice surging like a swallow into the verging arches of Harold, cheering for this party of Danes and Geds. All bold men met to bet on Beowulf. Near Hrothgar's feet squatted Unferth, Ecglaf's son, unconvinced, whispering churlish words. Beowulf's bravado bristled him, and envy ate him alive. He'd historically been glorious, and the notion that another, more notorious under heaven, might enjoy greater greatness made him gnash. Ah, bro, do you happen to be the Beowulf who challenged Breca in the open ocean, insisting you should swim in shark seas for no reason but to prove your petty prowess, boasting that no boat should guard your lives, but that you should risk them recklessly? I heard no one could convince you two of clarity, that you dove overboard surfing on stupidity, swearing you knew the currents better than any other, and that you Swoll as a troll fed on travelers were superior to any swell. You lolled for 7 nights in wintry waters, and in the end, he outswam your fool self, skipped ashore unscathed through uncertain, and rolled onto the land safely in the land of the Hetherines. From there, he went on to his home country, where the Brandings adored him, a calm and pleasant place, and returned to his hall, his host. His boyish boast was proven, yes. He'd beaten Beowulf. No matter your other battles, the tales you told, the lines you sold, buddy, at least you lived. This time, bro, know it, no one's ever lasted a night clasped in Grendel's arms. Beowulf, Ecgtheow's son, wasn't fazed. Well, actually, buddy. Sit down. You're drunk. Unferth, you've run your mouth about Breaker, me, and our sea swagger, but let me drop some truth into your tangent. I've been better on the water, deeper in the drink, and stronger in the swim than any man alive. Breaker and I were boys together. Our desires were only dares, one upon the other, brother to brother. Maybe you know this story, but hold up, I forgot. You've got no brothers left. Well, we declared ourselves adventurers, and so we swam, swords in hand for safety, unsheathed, father forged. We knew there were sharks. No one here is stupid. We couldn't float freer or swim straighter than I, and I had no urge to leave him or lose the lesser swimmer. I was Breaker's lifeguard. I knew my duty. The rains rocked us and storms shook us, and for 5 nights we floated, warring against winds from the north, the waves like blades, bone cold, until at last we were blown apart, the biting beasts of the bottom roiling up to wring me, wrestling me to the seafloor. All that held me was my armor, clasped hands made of gold, chainmail gainsaying waves and wet, the work of ancestors forging my ferocity. It kept me bold enough to fight when a monster dragged me down and gripped me, ripping at my skin. I was pinned, swaddled in squalor. Last chance, I took it. I put that monster down. I made it a sleeper as it leapt, severed its spine, spiked its skull, and split it into smithereens. My own strength sank that sea monster, and soon I was fighting again, lower than any human sight, outside even the edges of God's light. Dark deeps, hell's creatures in them, swinging my sword beneath the eyes of the world. I would not be eaten, nor beaten, nor skewered swimmer I. No drowned dinner for a circle of cold companions, gobbling my guts, glutted on my gold. At dawn I surfaced in a slurry of scales, floating flotsam where formerly there'd been fangs. I'd sacrificed myself to save every subsequent seafarer from deep despair, and the monsters of the dark were gone. The east was gilded with God, and the sea was smooth. I could see the shore, the strong cliffs rising, built of their own bruises. If a man's brave enough, fate, when on the fence, will often spare him. I'd never brag, but the truth is, my sword slew 9 singular scavengers that night. There are no ocean-going stories more awful than mine. No tales of greater terror. No other man so sea-stalked. But I survived. My salvation in my own hands. The waves bore me shoreward, attending me, and left me at long last in the land of the Finns. The end. I've racked my brain, bro, but Unferth, I can't unpack any similar stories of heroics from you. Let me say it straight. You don't rape, and neither did Breaker when it came to battle. The Gulf, you're cattle, and I'm a wolf. I'm not even mentioning your sins, your kin killing, your brother beating. I'm not the man to damn you. No shit though, Unferth. If you were the bitter, brawling brave you claim to be, your king wouldn't have suffered a single night of Grendel's rampage. No Bitten's bones, no hall horror, no chaos in his kingdom. Grendel was aware he had nothing to fear. Your sword's soft, son. No warrior awaited him in Herod. The shieldings were unshielded, their hall unguarded. He knew he could crush you, comfort himself with grappling, grind your bones to make his bread. He's got no fear of beer hall brothers, but this you can quote, he'll fear me. There's no guns of note on anyone but me and my gears. Come on, Edgelaf's son, beat me. Or better yet, make me a bet that Grendel's maker won't be met. Then, if you brave boys feel like drinking, I'll serve you ale for breakfast, the sun shining on silver and gold, daylight yours, after nights be mine. This speech was more than enough to convince the ring giver, his hair grey, his war grace blazing. The king of the Bright Danes knew now he could defend his people with an assist from this warrior of the wider world. He got the party started, loud and lordly, and the hall welled up and overran with laughter. Wealhtheow appeared among them then, Hrothgar's queen. Gleaming, her gown golden, she chose her chance to charm. She was the cup keeper. She raised it high to show the men, then bore it to Hrothgar, Dane's delight, her husband and homeholder. She held it to his lips, and he drank deeply, the love of country in each draught. He threw it back as fast as once he'd drawn his sword, this old, old lord of war. And his men cheered. She went round, a helming hostess, treading with purpose, reins shining. Beer-sounding soldiers, old and young, both of her own house and the sea slayers, goblet held to her breast. Hashtag blessed. At last, Beowulf was before her, fingers outstretched. She welcomed him carefully to Helot as a hero, a man who'd answer hopes with hands, and who might, please God, finally redeem her land from hell. The warrior took the cup from Wealhtheow, eager for the end of festivities, for the night and fight to come. He was ready for his war, and a wight awaited him. Beowulf sipped, and the son of Ecgtheow assured the queen, "Woman, I knew my plan when I set off for this coast. Before I put my band in that boat, already I was bent on victory. I mean to give you a show, to make your sleep safe or be slain myself, Grendel's spikes in my skin. I'm going to do as real men do, and render myself a reaper, bleed him dry, or let death attend me and cupbearer in your place, here in this mead hall." The hostess was impressed by Beowulf's boasts. Brass balls, if nothing else. She posted up beside Hrothgar, queenly, her gold glinting. There was more celebration, the kind of party that hadn't been heard in a while, rowdy and riotous, loud with laughter and proud poetry, until a Halfdan's ear arrested rhyme for rest. The fiend, he knew, had been silent, subterranean while the sun shone, but now it was night. Darkness draped the earth. The happy hall would soon be a demon's domain, the men his dreadful diet. Shadows slunk from the swamp, and mists mossed the cliffs and hillsides. The men stood witness as their leaders took leave. Hrothgar wished luck on the late lingerer, gave him all hall power, and proclaimed, "I've never, not in all my years of shield bearing, trusted any other could hold this hall from horrors. It's yours tonight. May you ward it well. It was built for the tenders of the flame. Keep your reputation in mind and stand unyielding against the brute. If I find you alive in the morning, I'll reward you beyond your wildest dreams." Hrothgar and his household left the hall, the leader and protector of the shieldings bound to Wealhtheow's bed for comforts, his wifely strife soother. The king, it would prove, had appointed a watcher whose muscles were monster matched, fate directed to the Dane chief as a prince protector. The Geats knew this already. They trusted their man, his iron arms and brawling brand. Beowulf stripped, removed his breastplate and helmet, handed off his fine forged heirloom sword. His servant swooned over that sweet smith steel, ordered in no uncertain terms to ward and keep it safe. Beowulf headed to bed, swollen with certainty, and swore this mortal gift from God. I don't know what you've heard about hand to hand, but my hands are better than good, man. I'm direr than any demon. I won't slice Grendel with a sword, boys. It's too simple. I'd end him too quickly. It'd be unfair. He has no skill, only reptilian skin. His mind's got no flair for strategy, though his strength is savant. Nope. I'll go unarmed into this evening, and he'll take it on the chin, if he's got guts enough not to flee. May God referee this ring and declare the winner whichever of us he wishes. Then Beowulf dropped his head to pillow, and beside him rested his command of brave men, warriors of sea and sleep. They were ready to see life's end, didn't expect to lay eyes on their heartland again. Not familiar soil, not their parents, not their wives. They knew the story of the slaughterer, the dozen years Danes had been driven from their home hall. The Almighty, though, had other plans. A tapestry of terror threaded with triumph. The Weathergeats, the victors. They'd rise with their leader, crush the challenger, and cruise through creation, kinsman to a king. You know how it goes. God's the final decider, and men only the question askers, students seeking solace. In the dead of night, Grendel emerged. A predator without need of torch, surged to the shadows. Nearly all the guards were sleep sagging, chins to chests. They'd stitched themselves to God and knew no enemy could hem them in, not without almighty approval. Just one Thane waited, feigning sleep as the hour grew late. He lay awake, on high alert. Hidden by fog, Grendel roved the moors, God cursed, grudge worsening. He knew who he hunted. Wine-drunk, mead-met men, and he pined for his prey. Under storm clouds he stalked them, in his usual anguish, feeling a forbidden hearth, that gilded hall atop the hill, gleaming still through years of bloodshed. This was not the first time he'd hunted in Hrothgar's hall, but never before nor later had he had such hard luck. No one worthy had historically lain in wait. The warrior worked his way toward the war, his head and heart hurting, and arrived at the iron-crossed door. Its hinges howled a welcome, and his rage ratcheted up. He flung the hatch wide and leaped into the mead room, over decorated floors into the hold, fury frothing. His heart crowed as he counted them man by man nested together, roosting like roasting chickens. He'd be the sort of fox that stalks the night, eats his fill, no coup remaining, no bill, only feathers loose on the floor. Before sunrise, he planned to prize souls from skeletons. His weird, though, would no longer be writ in others' blood. Red footprints to the door and out, the moors, the mare. No. Tonight was the night Grendel's goose would be cooked, his funeral banquet bruised and blue. Fervid and flexing, faking sleep, Heorot's servant spied from his bench, scanning slit-eyed the long haunted hall, awaiting the hunted hunter. At last his enemy struck, snatching a sleeper, sucking him bone dry, staining the pale planks red, grunting, gobbling, gnawing him limb from limb, here a throat, here a head, fingers, feet, dead. Hands outstretched to slaughter a second, Grendel dropped his first course, spotting the bed where Beowulf slept. He gripped that sleeper, though, and found himself conscripted, his own hand grabbed by a commanding gift. The grasp began the tear that would take Grendel out, rendering him a revenant in the hall he'd always reveled in. His bones cracked, but he could not wrestle free from the clasp, war-wedded to a woe-bringer, who clung like no man ever clung, keeping him close. Grendel was an unwilling draftee, never bested before nor held hostage. Now Helak's man, chanting the boasts he'd made his bed rhyme, climbed from the covers to get a better grip. Knuckles buckled, joints unjoined. The attacker became the attacked, racked with pain, attempting to escape, to race from hall to fens, his hidden highways, his own grasp unlatched, his flesh locks loosened. Try though he might to divest himself of Herald and return home, dive into the dark and abide with any awful thing there, stay in stealthy health the rest of his days. The room shook, benches splintered, and Danes dreamt of doom or quivered, questioning. The warriors wrestled, muscles bulging, and rage screaming for their lives, and the hall trembled but stayed standing, its design fit for fighting. The wooden walls crossed with iron bands, a forest fettered together, though from what I've heard, the mead benches stood on end and shattered, gold sigils no match for battle. The two fighters fought on in the rubble. I mean, damn, man. Until this night, no shielding would have believed the hall could be felled by anything but flame, its ivory and iron, its careful cantilevers. Tonight, though, it risked timbering. A wailing clamor rose again, echoing over the confines, and the North Danes listened to the sound of doom's hammer, instability building a home in the hearts of those who have heard it. The whole hill quaked with the shriek of that almighty abrogate, the loner's lament, handcuffed by hopelessness, losing to an unforeseen leader. The warrior holding him was stronger than any monster, more muscular than any man. That stalwartest of soldiers had no wish to imprison the invader, only to slay him. Grendel's life wasn't worth living, and Beowulf had decided to end it. His own men stood too as the unarmed enemies swung heirloom blades willy-nilly, though really, their captain needed no safekeeping. They swung for the slayer's soul, but their struggle was for naught. They could have stayed sleeping rather than fought, or merely watched the battle, for their swords, sharp as they were, couldn't injure the fiend. His spells warded him, annealing his skin. Still, his death would be agony. The world clung to his fingers, and life leaving wouldn't be swift. No existence snuffing instantaneous gift, but sickly, slow suffering. His sinning spirit sent to sink slowly down to hell. He knew it now. He who'd spent seasons haunting this hall, preying on poets, bringing pain to the privileged, infuriating the Almighty. His body was breached. Its bones were breaking. Helak's kinsmen had him, hand-welded. Each of them living cancelled out the other, as Cain had Abel, brother unbrothered. Grendel's shoulder split, tendons twisting, arteries unscrolled, his limb worried from him, bested by fatal fists. Beowulf the winner, Grendel dismissed. He ran then for his grave, still living. He rushed to the water, wound weeping, lair his last longing. His hourglass was empty now, his days done, and he knew it. Each heartbeat wrote its number in red, and the ring Danes were delivered of their wretch with a ring. This enemy was dead. The ranger had arranged a cleansing, swept the hall while the Danes were sleeping, done the danger in. He was pleased with himself, at Geirtson's boasts proven in the Danes' den. He'd unharrowed Heorot's hall, and Hrothgar's humiliations held no further horrors, the darkness of recent fate now taking the form of someone lately late. Even if the whole wasn't here, but only a hand, Grendel's arm, torn off by the hero at the shoulder and hung on high, the span of his grasp displayed.
Holy shit!
So much boasting.
So fucking
So much
metal.
post.
That was ace.
That was so good.
Thank you.
Their trash talking is.
It's great, isn't it?
You're
Yeah.
like the perfect person to read this. I feel
Aw.
like so good.
This is hypnotic. The language of it, the
Yeah.
alliteration. Ah.
And then it just like cracks you up with the odd bro. Or
Yeah.
oh, there was this hilarious line about hand to hand and hands that I can't remember. Anyway. Fucking
Yeah.
funny.
Oh, and
It's-
yeah, and then lines like fate could fuck you up.
Yeah, I struggled to maintain my composure with hashtag blessed. I don't know how well.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, friends. I love this fucking poem so much.
This
Thank
is
you for
a good
reading,
one.
Rory, and for sharing this with us.
Mhm.
It's really awesome.
No worries. Tomorrow night, Grendel's mother.
Andy.
Bye, Andy.
You're gonna rip
Andy.
off some arms as well.
Maybe. Oh, actually, okay. Without getting ahead of
Wait,
myself.
wait. Now we're just getting story time stripped. Continue.
And in all seriousness, actually, so tomorrow night I'm particularly excited about because what Headley has done, she's the first woman to have a published translation. And the reason that she wanted to take on this project was specifically because she thinks basically that successive generations of translators have done Grendel's mother dirty, as far as you know, the woman seeking revenge as monster, and her interpretation is that Grendel's mother is absolutely justified in her actions from the perspective of like contemporary blood feuds and like that whole thing. Like, this dude killed her son, of course she needs to kill that dude's kinsman. But yeah, successive like generations have gone, oh well, no, Grendel was a monster, so she must be like a monster as well. And anyway, you'll see tomorrow night. Anyway, I'm very excited.
Just reminded me I really enjoyed the half rhyme of dude and blood feud at some point during that, but I was cycling home and so I couldn't make a comment at the time, and I'm not sure exactly what the line was, but I enjoyed that a lot.
That's a good rhyme.
I'm gonna head off. Bye bye. Thank you so much, Rory, for reading, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Hi.
We say goodbye to the catch-up crew.
Oh, goodbye, catch up crew.
Yeah. Rory, do you have any catch-up crew wisdom to embark?
Catch up crew, may your boasts be ever fulfilled, and may your arms remain firmly attached to your torso.
Yeah.
Also, fate
Yay.
can fuck you up.
Mhm.
They can
Right.
fuck you up. Bye, catch-up crew. Bye, Dora.
Bye.